Well, hello everyone. I'm Ash Kalwarachi. This is Education for Leadership. We have two great speakers here today. We're going to cover a range of topics, but most of it is going to be about how technology and new ways of thinking are making new opportunities available for women in leadership. We're going to talk a little bit about these founders and community managers' experience in creating those opportunities. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about how alternative forms of education have allowed for these new skills to be acquired and applied in everyday life. I'm Ash Kalwarachi. I've spent most of my life investing in and accelerating education innovators. I've been part of organizations like Techstars and Intel. And in those roles, I've invested in about 100 Edtech companies. We're going to use a little bit of that experience to talk a little bit about how technology is being applied to solve some of these problems. But we're going to be hearing from these speakers and community managers more so about how the differences between those applications occur in the US and the Nordics. Welcome, Marie, Ulla, good to see you. Ulla is a community manager at the Helsinki Education Hub, and Marie is a CEO at Dilla USA. Maybe I'll ask Ulla to introduce herself first.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Ulla Hemminki-Reijonen, and I'm the community manager at the Helsinki Education Hub, which is a new Edtech startup and innovation center in the center of Helsinki. So we help early stage teams in Edtech to grow their business and build their products.
Wonderful.
Hi there, my name is Marie. I am from Norway and I am currently leading Diller here in the US. We recently launched in North America, so that's super exciting. And we at Diller, we are a loyalty and marketing automated platform. So we've really helped the small and medium businesses communicate with their customers, really get to know their customers, and personalize the dialogue for the customers that are using, it's a platform made for the smaller and medium businesses.
Well, fantastic. Right. So we have those experienced in managing communities at a high level and working with cities to foster innovation in this space and empower female leaders. And we have those with boots on the ground actually applying those resources and skill sets. Ulla, tell us what's happening in EdTech in Helsinki.
Yeah, well, currently the city of Helsinki is investing a lot in EdTech entrepreneurship. So we are totally fully funded by the city of Helsinki. I'm working for the innovation unit there. So we run this incubator program for EdTech teams. It's first in Finland. I think there are not so many in Europe in general either. And then we have been seeing that actually EdTech as an industry attracts women founders pretty nicely. And we're happy about that. And we've been seeing also in Europe in general, like this female EdTech fellowship program has just started. So they are collecting together female founders in EdTech together to discuss and to support each other. So we've been seeing a lot lately in this field regarding EdTech and female founders actually.
Fantastic. I'm actually pleased to report that our numbers in New York see the same. Yeah, so there's about 1,000 EdTech founders running companies in New York focused on education and workforce. The national average for female founders in general is around 15-16%. In New York, that's double that. So 30% of those companies are run by females and empowering other learners and educators in the space. Glad to see those trends are continuing and you're supporting them in Helsinki. Marie, I'm familiar with the fact that you may not have had kind of a formal exposure to kind of the systems that support female leadership. Tell us how you kind of hacked the system. How did you get to where you are and build the resources you needed to build Dilla USA?
Yes, I think I'm very fortunate to being born and raised in Scandinavia. I might have taken it for granted because we have free education, there is university, there is a system that kind of helps everyone, not only females, but yeah, we don't have that much like social classes, there's not that much gender issues. So yeah, I think my skill set and tools really came with the society, and it's also very encouraging to be raised in a society where we, for example, just had a female prime minister that ruled the country for 8 years. We have very many good role models to look up to, and traveling the world, living in New York, seeing all the inequality kind of really makes me like super fortunate to having this, been given this tool set kind of for free, and so that's something that I don't take for granted, and I take it with me.
Well, that's very impressive that you managed to gather those resources yourselves. In my opinion, the reason adults go to school is to really access 3 or 4 things, right? It's access to experts, access to high quality content, access to a network you care about, and then maybe affiliation with these certain brands. You've kind of hacked these together yourself.
Yeah.
Ulla, I'm curious, you have relationships with the universities in the Nordics, and that's a pipeline for talent. Tell us about how you're fostering innovation through the system.
Yeah, so actually currently we have seen the big change in mindset, I would even say, in the universities in Finland regarding entrepreneurship. So for example, the universities in the capital area, like they are founding now, we can see rise of incubators in the universities. For example, University of Helsinki has now built, they just launched a few weeks ago, new incubators there. So, and there are like very active entrepreneurship societies, which are organizing hackathons, and like, I think it's change in mindset that we are seeing actually. It wasn't back then when I was studying there, we didn't have any of this like over 10 years ago, but now it looks very different, the ecosystem, I would say.
I think also in addition to the education, all the programs you can attend, there's also like a different approach, as you mentioned, with like supporters, advisors, like can you use your network? Who should you reach out to? Kind of be bold and risky. We saw when we took Diller from the Nordics over to the US, it's a completely new market. And the first thing we started off with, like, okay, the legal part. Should we do an LLC? Should we do an Inc? Like it's complete, like we speak English, but we don't speak the American legalization. So then it was all about, okay, who can we use in a network? Our network might not be that broad in the beginning. So we started reaching out to boutique law firms, to the bigger, like very corporate law firms, gathering information. Everyone is very like willing to help. They know it, they give great advice. So yeah, kind of like know who to ask. And also kind of our fellow friends, like we're not the first people taking a Nordic company over to the US. Can you speak to someone there? What have they experienced? Are there any risks you should look out for, any failures? So in addition to a great educational system that kind of helps us, also look for people that have the knowledge and that has been through your same journey. I think that's very valuable.
And I guess if I can continue from there, like I think at least in Finland it is so that if you want to start business, like let's say in Edtech, you need to start thinking globally already from the day one, because the market in the Nordics is very small and we only have like public schools, so your customers are really like the cities and so on, so you need to think globally already, but that's where we need help also.
Very true, and by the way, the American legal system is often a foreign language even to us Americans, so I'm glad you had some help there figuring that out. I'm curious, are there differences in how you built a business in the US versus how you were exposed to building a business in the Nordics?
Yes, very good point. I would say in the Nordics it's very easy to be a bit like inward focused. You need to have a perfect product. Everything needs to be like running smoothly. It's not done yet. It's not done yet. We need to fix this, this, and this. So that's kind of how I feel that the Nordics operate. But looking at the American way, go out to market, test the concept, get market feedback. So being aware of this, Diller really had like a focus from the beginning. Like it needs to be user friendly. Are we really solving a problem for the customers? Instead of having this like super perfect thing, and when you don't then go to the market, it might be too late. So I think that's the differences between the Nordics and the US. So I think the Nordics can learn some from the American there.
Yeah, and I guess we've noticed this too. I can relate to that. So that's why the city of Helsinki started a few years ago to build Testbed Helsinki activities. which means that now we have a team of people who are helping companies and entrepreneurs to test their solutions already when they are building the solution. So test with cities. So for example, my colleagues are responsible for testing solutions with schools. So it would be otherwise very difficult to go into schools and test something that is not ready. You usually go there when you have ready-made solution and you are selling it. But it's much more effective if you can actually test it and notice what you need to change before you have done like years of development work. So that's why there are now processes in place. I'm calling it like a shortcut to schools, which I think is a very unique model that we've been building there. So now the companies get help. We find the right school for them, and we need to do the contracts and like guide them how you are doing a successful pilot. And this happens in different industries. So Testbed is also, some are doing testing innovations for smart mobility and some for healthcare. So I think these kind of structural processes that help you to test solutions and like get over that mindset that everything needs to be perfect and ready are very welcome, I think. And those are very popular processes and popular activities.
I wanted to change gears slightly and start talking about the internal world of building a company as a female founder or not, but since this is about education and leadership for female innovators, let's talk a little bit about how that might differ, that path. Right? So we know some of the challenges, right? We know that venture capital is a very biased industry. It's traditionally been primarily male focused. Now that's changing slightly, but still female founders find it very difficult to raise funding and build organizations. From your experience managing these communities of innovators, Ulla, tell us, how do you train, how do you create an environment, a safe environment for female founders and innovators? What are the systems that you try to put in place?
Yeah, so I have the pleasure to be a mentor in one of these programs, like a Female Tech Frontrunner program, which is an international mentoring program for female founders. And City of Helsinki is taking part in this. So we have noticed this problem, and then we try to organize like programs that are helping precisely these female founders and stuff like that. But then in my everyday life, like everyday work, we do have actually in our first batch of incubator program, we had 20% of female founders, and in the next one now we have the batch 2, we have 60% of the founders are female. So yeah, we do have in education industry many female founders. Mostly teachers or want to start businesses. So what I'm noticing, like if we are having these events and trainings where we have investors, for example, in the house, I'm seeing the guys always run to these investors and start talking and pitching their solutions, and the women founders are online waiting for their turn. So what I'm usually, I like to go there and say to these female founders, hey, I will introduce you now to the investor and we will go there now. We are not waiting here aside. So I guess I wish there would be like people who can like give this escort service, like really bring you to places, open you doors, like say, now you gotta go here and like do that. So that's what I personally try to do and yeah.
Excellent. So it's not only about understanding that the behavior of building a company on a daily basis is different. It's also understanding how you can help and be inclined to do so. Marie, you may not have even experienced that in building your company because you had a little bit of a different path. Tell us, are there any behaviors you would encourage for female innovators?
Yes. I think also, like, even though I'm fresh and new to this, I would kind of use it as an advantage. Like, can you be bold and stick out? If everyone is some men in the room, you have a great advantage because everyone's going to see you. You're going to be different. So if you're able to kind of, use that as an advantage, I would definitely, go for that. And I would also say that, can you repeat the question?
Are there any behaviors you would advise? Would you advise certain behaviors for female innovators trying to build their companies, fundraise? hire, etc.?
Yes, yes. I would be bold, like take risk, dare to like step out of your comfort zone. There's probably always going to be something rewarding when you're kind of finished with what you've been doing. But I think also I come with a great package of being from Scandinavia. What values can I bring? For example, like building a company, can I bring the Scandinavian values of how we're going to invest in the team? Maternity leave. There's so many things in Scandinavia that we take for granted that I think it's going to add on to a very good culture here in the US. And there's a lot of things we can adapt also from the American. Yesterday I spoke to a very good friend. So I've been in America, went to Norway, really didn't think that he was a salesperson, but came to Norway, being an American, I'm not a salesperson, that's not what I do, but came to Norway and was like, hey, I'm a great salesperson. so maybe also there's something like, there's pros and cons from both culture, like can we adapt, can we learn being more bold, be out there, take risk, take the stage. I think, yeah, there's get your word out there.
So yeah, something I've noticed over the years, I probably work with 10,000 Edtech founders. The best salespeople tend to spend 20 minutes of a 25-minute meeting listening, and about 5 minutes talking, which actually tends to remind me of the behavior of female founders more.
Yeah. I could probably, you mentioned this work-life balance, I could mention something about that. So I think people are afraid, like talking at least a lot about young women, they will start family soon and they are a risk and these kind of things. But what I've actually in real life seen in my bubble of work-oriented women, I guess, so when they have had children and they are on maternity leave, which you can be a long time, of course, in Finland, but anyway, actually they all have started studying, or they have even, some of them founded business. So on the other hand, it is the time when you are at home, you are off from your daily work, you get to think about what do you want, who do you want to be, fulfill your dreams. Like, I would say even that it's a good opportunity for many to have a family, to be a while off from work. So I would also like to think about these common thoughts a bit differently. And yeah.
Okay, so we're touching on some points of work-life balance. I'm going to come back to work-life balance in a second. Since we're talking about new ways of thinking and technology in supporting women in leadership, tell us about groups, forums, communities. How can founders find these safe spaces, if you will, and feel like they belong?
Yeah, so of course there are these official programs where also female founders can apply and join. But then I'm seeing like there are lots of informal discussion groups. For example, in Finland we have this one Facebook group that I don't know how many people it already has, but it's for women who are at work and they are sharing all kinds of life stories and ask for help from other women, and these are really active. And then I've been in tech industry for a long time, so there are also all kinds of women in immersive tech groups where you get information and like these supportive groups that are more informal. So I really encourage everyone to join these groups and like I think women can be very good to other women and helpful.
I think it's been super inspiring to be here today as well. Like from all the panels, I'll be like, I need to speak with that person. I have something to learn there. Maybe she can work on my pitch. Maybe this is something I should work on for my storytelling. So really be bold and kind of ask people. You can get a no, but mostly you'll probably get a yes, because people, if they believe in your mission and if they really see that you have something to contribute, I'm sure there's a lot of people that will help you on the way. So yeah, really be bold and just knock down some doors.
Yeah, and I guess you need these, of course you need these like supportive people and supportive groups, but then on the other hand, I think if I'm having an idea, I have plenty of ideas, so I'm testing them usually first. So I'm calling my brother, who is super smart but totally in different industry, and I'm telling, hey, I got this great idea, what do you think? And I'm not calling him because I think like he would be super supportive and like, oh, what a brilliant idea. It's exactly the opposite. He's usually like telling, oh, that you don't have any clue what you are doing, or like, oh, I don't totally understand, what are you thinking about? Like, I need to like build the arguments, hey, but you haven't thought about this and you haven't thought about that, and like try to find more information to convince him. And in the end, I know he is supportive, but he's challenging me so that I can become better, I can develop. So I think people need like these kind of people who help you to succeed and helps you to like go forward. And yeah, so it doesn't matter who this person are, but anyway, I think we need these kind of people too. Not only the ones who are always saying, oh, you are wonderful.
True, and if you want someone's opinion, exactly how they feel and think, you're going to have to come to New York for that, because you're definitely not going to. In fact, a lot of the mentors that I've worked with over the years, they tend to find this radical candor very rare, right? And somebody telling you that your baby looks ugly, right, for very specific reasons, is actually really helpful once you get over the fact that your baby looks ugly. So run towards it is, I think, the advice that you're saying, and very much taken. I'll also point out that this event is actually pretty amazing because one of the things that we had to do when we were starting up ecosystems in New York around education innovation was that we had to show that it was possible. Founders don't get into a certain business and don't follow their passion, even if they're really experienced in it, unless people that look like them were successful in this space. So bringing these innovators and leaders together today at Rise at the Nordic House is a fantastic way to show that what success is actually possible.
Yeah, and I do think that people need role models. Like I can tell, in the ICT company, I had a boss. She was like this pioneer in ICT world, like used to be CEO in another company and so on. So she told me, like, we were going to conference and she was telling me, hey, people come and talk to you only because you are a woman, you have to understand this. It's a tech conference and so on. And when she needed to go someplace, she couldn't, she sent me, and I was like, oh, this is a high level place and I'm new to industry, like what am I doing there? So, no, you go there now and you have to just go. And sometimes I think like you need these people who are like really pushing you forward and like these role models in the industry. So who help you to go to places you wouldn't go otherwise and off the comfort zone.
I'm curious if you've explored communities like that, because now we have communities like Chief in New York and other areas which are communities of leadership, female or otherwise. We have communities online as well. There's places like the Nordic House and Soho House that one might go to find those communities. Where do you go to find these communities? I'm curious. Marie?
I try to seek it through my mentors and advisors, and in full transparency, COVID kind of changed things up. So if people have anything that you think I should be at, I'm very open to hear about it. I'm very thankful to be invited here today. So I don't have a specific spot, but I'm willing to go out there.
Okay. Well, let's dig into that, right? So you brought up the last couple of years, and now I would argue that we're coming into this phase that we aren't going to go back in time and interact like we did. We are now kind of in the future. I would argue we've skipped 5 years into the future in terms of how technology is being used to interact and learn from each other. What is your ideal scenario for connecting with the individuals and accessing the resources you want, right? Are there things that you would wish for in building your company that wish existed right now?
Oh, a very great question. I think there's also many answers to it. I think what like COVID did and are kind of doing today as well is making it much easier to jump on a call. I can meet like experts in Australia. I can have like rapid calls back in Norway. We don't need our team to fly in and out. Like I can make our expert come to this call, or I can invite people to meet our team. So like Zoom really does it, but I think there's still something that like if it's possible to meet in person, the interaction, the more you kind of get to know and the wording around it. So I think, a combination is great.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure to work for organizations that have always been for lifelong learning and like educating their employees so that they could I've been suggesting so many courses and so many trainings that I found interesting, and the employer has thought, yeah, hey, that's a good idea, you can do that. So I think the organizations should also encourage people to develop themselves all the time, so depending on their like personal interests and career interests.
And also going back to the advisors and supporters, I think it's not like a set way of how to do business. Your business is always growing, it's always in a different loop. And as I mentioned, like in the beginning, it was all about the lawyers. Now it's maybe all about like marketing. How do we meet the American market? Secondly, or like thirdly, it's going to be like recruiting, how to get the best heads here in New York. So also then like know which advisors to reach out to, how should I now work to expand in my network for my kind of next move or the company's next move. I think that's also very valuable.
I'm curious, let's talk a little bit about how you're educating your communities, right? So your hub, and I'm talking about Marie, your employees and your team, right? How are you interacting with each other? How are you training, providing training for new employees, onboarding people into the new community? Are you using technology to do that? Are you sticking with, how are you augmenting your systems and processes from before the pandemic?
So we are educating both the startups and sometimes teachers and like for new technologies. We've had totally events in virtual reality. We have had events live at the hub. We've had hybrid events. So I guess we've tried pretty many concepts. And we've been lucky that we have had the hub open now during the corona for the last year. Only some weeks we were closed. But yeah, I think we tried many things, and then people could choose whatever format they preferred and then join.
Yes, and yeah, we are a tech company, and having also like a US entity and a Scandinavian one, we do mostly over like Zoom and emails and all the technology stuff that we have out there.
Got it. I want to move the conversation over to the topic of sustainability for a minute. That's a very broad topic, right? And we each might define it in very different ways, all of us in this room. What does sustainability in business mean to you? I'm curious how it manifests in your practices.
Yeah, so we have this Edtech startups, many startups who are thinking about how to teach sustainable future for kids. So it's like a focus of their whole business, this sustainability. But I think like every company nowadays should think about sustainability if they want someone to think they are like credible and like a real company. So you cannot get over it. And then I think these bigger systems and organizations, talking about City of Helsinki, for example, they have a role in this field too. For example, City of Helsinki has really ambitious climate goals currently, and when we are at the hub organizing events for startups, for example, there is the policy that every time I'm serving coffee, it can have only oat milk with it. Or, for example, when we are serving food, it always needs to be vegetarian food. So Pizza Fridays are veggie Pizza Fridays. So these kind of policies and things that, in a way, in the end, also teach the whole community to act sustainably. I think those are really important.
Yes, and in addition to like in general sustainability for the environment, I think it comes down to also like what the company is doing, the product of it, and also how you're looking at your team for being sustainable. So when it comes to the product, like our mission and vision at Diller is really making the gap between smaller businesses and larger businesses, providing them with a modern technology. This technology has only been available for the larger guys that has deeper pockets, that has more marketing budget. So now we're kind of limited the gap and making modern technology available for the small guys. And for us, that is sustainability. That's an easier way of working. I'm not quite sure how many trees we're gonna save by taking out the loyalty card or the stamp card. by making them digital, but we're still like giving something very modern to the small guys. So I think that's sustainable, and also sustainable looking at the team. Like, do you onboard people that really has like passion for this? Will they stay on? Diversity, like in gender, experience, age. So really also that view of how you build a sustainable team.
There's also this concept of creating a sustainable business model, right? Which is ultimately the goal of any innovator. And when I mean create a sustainable business model, it means your costs, or at least equate your revenues, which doesn't necessarily need to be the case in a traditional venture capital business model, right? So venture-backed businesses raise a ton of funding, they spend it on getting to a certain product market fit, and increase valuations by raising larger and larger rounds. Not necessarily a very sustainable business unless you practice very mindfully. And the incentives there are to increase valuations exponentially each investor who comes into the round. Alternatively, a sustainable business model, I've found, tends to be followed by people who don't have access to that much capital, i.e. People of color, female founders. And so you tend to see businesses that are led by these types of people getting to sustainability, creating business models that revenues equals costs at the very least, sooner than later, right? They don't have the types of scale that they do as large organizations, but they are creating impact, and they are doing so, leaving the world as it was before they entered, or a little bit better, right? So we've actually heard from maybe 3 different perspectives of what sustainability could be in business. I want to follow that thread that you introduced, Maria, around work-life balance, right? So let's talk a little bit about how as leaders, as women in business, we can encourage practices and perhaps technology that can make work-life balance a little bit more feasible.
Yeah, there are definitely ways how you can do it. I think these flexible working hours and things like that are a great example of bringing this flexibility for people with families. And for example, in Finland, I'm seeing like we have this very active network. It's called Mothers in Business. So they are gathering together and with their kids, but they are not talking about diapers. They are talking about business. So I guess these kind of new forums and new groups are still needed to bring this forward, like this work-life balance in the society.
Yeah, also like allowing a hybrid model. Can you work from home? Can you work from the office? And also be aware of the hours. Do we actually need to work 8 to 4, 8 to 5, 9 to 6? Can, like, as long as the work gets done, I think this has been mentioned earlier today as well. I think it's a very good point. Like, as long as the person deliver kind of doesn't, if you have the right mindset, it doesn't matter when you get that email, as long as it gets done.
Got it. I want to dig a little bit deeper into this topic because I think it is near and dear to a lot of individuals. It's something that doesn't necessarily get looked at from primarily male leadership as well, right? Certainly in New York, we're very guilty of working hard and playing hard, and often having a family hard is not part of the equation, right? So I'm curious if you're in the shoes of individuals creating policy and creating large organizations in New York, what recommendations would you make? What rules would you set?
Yeah, well, of course, there needs to be infrastructure in place, like daycare, which is affordable for everybody, so that you can actually, both parents can work. So I think that's the number one. Like, there needs to be infrastructure that supports working parents. Yeah.
Anything else?
Be open-minded, allow it, like really understand that's the way of doing it, or that's the modern way of doing it.
Let's talk about being open-minded, right? So you're a manager and one of your employees comes to you and talks about how their life has changed. They've recently discovered that they're pregnant and need your support to be as effective and contributing to the mission. What advice would you give someone in those shoes having their same conversation?
It's a very good example in full transparency. We're only one person here in the US at the moment, but I'm looking forward to get that question when we grow the team, just to set it up. I think it is maybe easier to attack one of those questions since I'm a woman myself. Like I don't have any child today, but I think you're gonna be more understandable about it. I also come from a great culture that there's room for having a baby. Can we maybe argue that the American dream is not a dream where you fit to have a family? It's kind of like a one-man show where you go on. So just, I would say, be open, find a solution, like what works, have a sit down. And I think like an open conversation, like where you kind of get the rules together, it's a great solution. But yeah, I'm looking forward to being in that position.
And I also always want to talk about both parents, like also dads have responsibility, and they are taking the responsibility really well. In what I'm seeing, like it's really supporting these, like dads can also stay at home and these kind of processes. So I think that's very important too.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, we have about 10 minutes left today in terms of our advice-giving portion of this session. Let's talk about people and individuals and stakeholders in this ecosystem we can probably provide some guidance to, right? So let's talk about your female Edtech founders in your program, Zula, right? When approaching mentors and when approaching individuals that have the resources that when one needs to grow a company, how would you recommend that they approach those individuals and manage that conversation? I'm curious whether the accelerator provides that kind of guidance.
For mentors, you mean?
For mentors or the founders.
Yeah, so I want to say, like in our incubator, for example, I think that gender is not that big issue. Like it's not about like now you have to behave this way because you are a female founder or a female mentor. Like I think in our industry, that's not that big question actually.
Okay. Well, I'm actually asking general. I'm not asking a gendered question. I'm simply asking what advice would you give a founder approaching an investor or a mentor?
Yeah, I would also say like be brave. Like when you see the opportunity, take it. Don't wait your turn. You just go there immediately. I think, yeah.
I would also say if you're able not to be picky, but kind of find a partner or partnership or someone to work with that really sees your value, really sees your vision and mission, that can support it, that kind of fills it. If not, I think it's going to be like you're not going to speak the same language. One part might be too focused on the growth economics, the other part might be focused on another thing. So if you have the opportunity, really partner up with someone that sees the same mission and want to go the road with you. So yeah, you're sure to be in bed with the right person.
And also I would say like talk to diverse people, people who think very differently than you, and like I'm always saying, like when you're designing solutions, like design for extremes, like not for an average person, like so that you when you speak to different kind of people, then you are exposed to new ideas more.
Is there anyone else that you would like to provide advice for? Maybe what advice would you provide investors in your ecosystem, for example?
Yeah, well, when we are organizing these investor events, I always want to find these female investors to give some role models, but it's still pretty hard to find. So I'm thinking like I hope to see more and more female investors also in the field. And yeah.
Okay. Any advice you'd provide to investors, right?
I'm all about the partnership. Like they also need to see the value that you're bringing to the table. Mm-hmm. So if it's maybe not a match, go find another one, because there is someone that's going to see your value. There is someone that's really going to help carry you. And when they have the same passion as you, it will be easier for them to introduce you to the right people, to give you the great advice. So I would, really try to find a good match. It's our recommendation. Also,
for the founders, I would add that listen to people. I'm seeing it so many times, like our startup founders meet new important people and influencers and investors. they first start telling their story like very quickly. I need to pitch this now, and I'm only talking this monologue. But I think the most successful ones are the ones who actually go and listen to and ask questions. So I'm always like thinking about, oh, I haven't heard this and this and this person ask any questions. So I think that would be also one advice I would give, like stop and listen.
Listen is great advice. I think the other piece of advice I probably add is don't forget to tell them about you, right? Because at the earlier stage, those who are involved, those who are passionate about early innovation or the cutting edge innovation, they're as much interested in investing in you as a person as they are in the product or the solution, right? And it's part of the narrative that gets left out quite often.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing like founders are so shy in a way, like they don't want to share what they are building. It's like, I'm doing this in secret so that nobody steals my idea. But it can never develop if you don't tell about it to people.
Very true.
Yes, again, being bold, I think we brushed onto this. Like Scandinavian, you're more moderate, you don't want to be too bold, you don't want to say how good you're doing it. So also maybe adapting a bit more the American way, like put it out there, tell your success stories.
I've found that if one can show yourself to be the #1 expert in a particular problem, you don't even need to talk about the solution. But if you just talk about the problem and use data, use emotion, use your credibility to be known as that #1 expert in the problem, you can actually attract all the investment, talent, visibility, press, everything that you need. And then once you do, then you can start talking to them about the product, right? It is a key part of the narrative that I find gets left out. I want to continue on this track since we're about five minutes left in terms of this advice giving portion of our session. We've provided some advice to some innovators and founders. We've provided some advice to some investors. What kind of advice would you provide to the CEO of a large corporation? They may be male, they may be female, but in their hiring practices, in the business that they do, how would you wish they behaved? What do you wish they supported?
I would say, like, for personally, kind of use your grit and just keep going. You're gonna get so many no's, but when you get that yes, it's gonna be so valuable, it's gonna spark you, it's gonna keep you going, but just, you're gonna meet the wall, but keep going, keep going.
I would say let's say for a large corporation, we are collaborating a lot with these big companies like Microsoft, Google, HP, and so on. So I've noticed that it's they always like to stay in touch with startups and hear about new ideas. So I would say, like, stay curious about new ideas that are coming from these individuals or these founders, and like get to know them, and who knows, maybe there could be the next innovation you are doing together. So I'm also seeing a role in this field with these large corporations too, and we've had great collaboration with them, I have to say.
Fantastic. And maybe my last question is, what advice would you provide for organizations like Nordicus, for example, right? So these community organizations that are gathering the right individuals, giving credibility and visibility, those who need them. Any advice you would provide them?
I guess the structures need to be in place, and it's always it's decision making in the end. Like, it's political decision making. Like, where do you put your money? Like, how much do you want to invest on startup entrepreneurship? And I think what we've been seeing in Helsinki in the past years, like now we have really vibrant startup scene, and there are lots of incubators also for other fields than us now that we are seeing, and a lot of, like, there is this new organization also which is lobbying for startups, like taking part in political decision making, trying to make these supportive environments visible and try to get funding for that. So it can be even public organization like a city that is like the key player in this industry.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think also network is super important. We see the benefit, the value of it. So yeah, more events, more arenas and stages, and where you can meet like-minded. Yeah, the networking is super valuable for a startup, I would say.
So keep doing what you're doing because it's helping. Well, thank you very much, the two of you, for your insights and your time. Thank you to the audience for being with us today.